Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC Vegas 27. I'm Paul Shaughnessy, joined by the power of Zoom by Cody Saftic. Hey, in the comment section last week of our show did pretty good by the numbers and all of that stuff. People got really mad about my hat. There was like a couple guys in the comment section saying that they're like, how am I supposed to take this guy seriously if his hat isn't on straight? So I've got it straight, but yeah, fuck him. We're going a little. We're going a little bit.
I didn't even notice that you were a little bit off.
There was only
keeping a little bit of flavor.
This is how I roll all the time. Yeah, I'm obviously coming in a little bit too cocky with, the sub from Christos Giagos, the knockout by catch a beating. It was a good week. Like after 3 fights, I was looking at it. I'm just like, not only can I not lose on this card, like I'm guaranteed like a couple grand winning. Like it was like $4,000 won on the night. Not too bad. Can't really complain.
Well, you deserve to be able to tip your hat then, my friend.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I mean, more.
Cachoeira in high insights, like, wow, that was a good price. But my God, Paul Shaughnessy getting it done when times are needed.
Yeah. Well, you're only as good as your last card. And our last card, or our next card, is UFC Vegas 27. Rob Font takes on Cody Garbrandt. -110 across the board. You generally hate Cody Garbrandt. He is one of the Codys that is not on Team Cody. I'm assuming that you're picking Font in this spot. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I am taking Rob Font in the spot. It's not because of any hatred against Cody Garbrandt. It's not like I dislike the guy as well. He's one of the Codys. We got to support our own. It's just when he came into the UFC, it was way easier to get behind this guy than the later years, where he just kind of became cocky, became his own worst enemy. And I don't mean like in the training world. Well, maybe in the training world, he just became this guy that, like, especially when around that time he's champion, he beats Dominic Cruz. That performance against Dominic Cruz, the manner in which he does it, he's dancing, he's styling, he's having fun in there. But it's just like an alpha male, despite that's the gym that he's out of. It's like an alpha male dominating performance. And that just puts his head on a different level. There's the stories of him dating Paige Van Zandt, and then she's out of the gym, and Cody Garbrandt's got mean things to say, and he's doing this and he's doing that. But it's that bravado that he carries into the gym every day that I think is his downfall, man. The guy goes into the gym and he goes balls to the walls. He goes 100% in the gym. They're fighting like it's every day is a fight, not just a sparring session, but an actual fight. And you've seen some of the best guys in the world. That's how they started out, right? The guys that shoot to box, the Vanderaa Silvas, the Anderson Silvas, Milicic fighting system back in the day with Matt Hughes and Tim Sylvia and the whole cast of characters there. Like these guys were all known for training hard all the time, going hard. And as a result, their body starts to break down. They can't take the damage as much. Cody Garbrandt starts boasting these stories about knocking out TJ Dillashaw in the gym. I knocked this guy out in the gym, knocked him out in the gym, sparring session. Why would you even be bragging about something like that? That's what I mean by I start to not like Cody Garbrandt, is that he kind of becomes a douchebag, right? He's on The Ultimate Fighter. He's not like as a coach, right? He doesn't seem like a very nice guy. He doesn't seem like the smartest guy going. Is he entertaining? Sure. Does he have a plethora of skills? Absolutely. But he just talks a whole lot of shit at the time. It's that when he gets that TJ Dillashaw fight finally, they do tough. He's won the title. It's his first title defense. He's telling everybody in the world about how he knocked out TJ Dillashaw in the gym. Then it's like, okay, time to repeat. And you know something? He dropped TJ Dillashaw in that first round in the fight. You can see that the skills are there. You can see as far as like his polished boxing skills, he's got great boxing for the division. He's the guy that did box as an amateur. He's not like he has a pro background. He doesn't even have like a really deep amateur pedigree beyond like 47 pro fights, but he's got that background. He keeps his hands pretty tight, pretty compact. They're fast. And he's got a whole lot of power. He's able to drop TJ Dillashaw. As soon as TJ recovers, he knocks out Garbrandt flush. It's damage. I think that he's taken a lot in the gym already, but they run it back. And the second time, he's way less competitive. And the second time, it's the same result. He gets knocked out. Now we get the Pedro Munoz fight. You and me were on record going out there and saying his chin might be gone. And he's got this tendency to just get out there and brawl with guys. He goes out, and you could be the most skillful guy in the world, but if you don't got the durability and the chin to be able to go these hard 3 rounds, these hard 5 rounds, eventually it's going to catch up with you. It's not always who's the better fighter. I should say it's not who's the better, martial artist. It's who's the better fighter. Sometimes it's just the guy that can take a little more and come through. He just doesn't seem like that. So the Pedro Munoz fight, obviously, it unfolds the same way. Pedro shows up, meets him in the center of the cage, hurts him with the leg kicks, causes him to get a little bit desperate, causes him to have a gunfight. And when Cody Garbrandt has gunfights, he gets clipped and he's on the wrong end of it. Rob Font's got to do that. He's got to force the same thing. Now, yes, Garbrandt's coming off the win over Rafael Assunção his last time out. He claimed he's reinvented. He had time off. He said chin's not an issue anymore. And again, this is a guy that got a lot of skills. They're always on display. You always see them. But similar to we see week in and week out, a lot of these fighters that'll win the first round and then lose the fight beyond that. Michael Chandler, let's say, if you want to make, a recent example. Someone who in the first 5 minutes of the fight, it's like, oh, wow. This guy moves extremely well, extremely athletic, in and out, great power, carries it over well. And then second, third, fourth, if you can force them into these later rounds, then the game just falls off completely. And when they're not moving and they're not styling and they're not, when they're not at their best, they're just a way different fighter. Cody Garbrandt got away with it against Rafael Assunção. He claims he's reinvented. You can see the skills there, but to me, it wasn't an I'm back performance. He gets the knockout, but no doubt that deep down in there, you drag him into a war, stand-up battle especially, you can have a lot of success. And I think that what's Font's going to be able to do. Font was always regarded as like one of those second-tier strikers in the division, like he can't quite strike with the best guys. He's not going to go out there and strike with the Jimmy Riveras and the upper echelon guys. But as far as like a top 15 type gatekeeper type, Rob Font's there, but he's breaking through, man. And call it the Boston Brigade, call it that, the movement, but the guys like Calvin Cater are breaking through, and a lot of his teammates are, Randy Costa, a lot of guys he's surrounding himself with. The same thing. They're all enjoying the fruit of their labors. They're all making some big moves in the game, and they're all really tight and refined with the striking game. So we knew he could strike going into the Marlon Moraes fight. It was, what about the other intangibles of the game? He could strike, but is he going to strike with Marlon Moraes? And yeah, he's been working on his takedown defense and his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu all around, but Marlon's really strong, got decent wrestling. Yeah, Marlon's a BJJ black belt, but it was a complete performance because Marlon did take him down. And when Marlon did take him down, I mean, Rob Font's completely comfortable. He's clean. He works his way back up. He has a lot of success. And eventually he's able to tire him out and knock him out. And I see this one going similar. Garbrandt might not use his wrestling. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. If he does, it's just going to tire him out. Beyond that, it's that he'll have his success in that first 3, 4, 5 minutes. And then the longer this thing goes, Font's going to catch it. Font's going to catch him with something, or he's just going to make him work. He's going to make him desperate. If I'm banking on both guys' chins, I think Font's the more durable guy. Both guys striking, both clean, both refined. But Rob Font's got a big reach advantage in this spot, something like 5 or 6 inch reach advantage over Cody Garbrandt. So his jabs are going to be consistently landing, and he's going to intercept Cody Garbrandt if Garbrandt decides to be aggressive and come forward. I just think he catches out something. And last but not least is that Cody seems to be more a boxer. Again, that's his base. That's his reset structures that he'll go back to his technical boxing, right? Whereas Rob Font can mix it up really good. He has nasty leg kicks. And when you look back to the Pedro Munoz fight, what causes Cody just to get desperate and start punching? Well, people will say the headbutt. Dude, he got knocked with a headbutt. He got dropped. And when he stood up, he was just like, screw it, and went. But it's the whole lead up prior to the headbutt where his leg just gets completely thrashed and he can't move. This is one round. So Font's going to be able to break this guy down, make him immobilize him, make him a sitting target, pick him off. So the pick for me is Rob Font. I think Font gets this thing done by knockout. I see the under 2.5 is pretty much like, around that even money. And
it's close
it's close to a pick 'em. And I agree. Like I could see it going slightly over and him taking a little bit longer, but I could see the gunfight starting early in the second and not making it into that third round. So for me, the personal pick would be that under 2.5. More so than that, I'm going to go Font by knockout.
That all makes sense to me, to be perfectly honest. But like you go through the numbers, and even that Dominic Cruz fight, Cody Garbrandt lands like 66 significant strikes. There's 2 knockdowns in that fight, but that was his masterclass. The guy just doesn't really throw all that much. Against Rafael Assunção last time out, 19-17, and that was the end of round 2 when he got that finish. So it's a lot of inactivity. Maybe Garbrandt looks good early on. You get a good opportunity to buy on Font, or at a better price than even pick him. But I'm with you. Like if this fight is scheduled, or if the odds for the over under are to 2.5 rounds, and it's minus 125, so it's 50-50 that it's going to go that distance. If we go that distance, Font's going to be landing like 70-80 strikes during that time. Garbrandt maybe 40. Like that's just kind of how the math plays out in a lot of Cody Garbrandt's fights. So obviously Garbrandt, he can hit really, really hard, but I think that 6-inch reach advantage that you were talking about earlier causes big problems for him as well. The under 2.5 rounds, I'm on board with that with you, and we'll be looking to hit Font live as long as he doesn't get his head knocked off in the first little bit. All right, we got Yan Jianan taking on Carla Esparza, -120. Jianan +100. Esparza. Earlier in the week, Jianan was like -175 favors, like +150 Esparza. And I think people, they rewatch the Claudia Gadelha fight and see, Claudia is able to get takedowns on Yan Jianan early in that fight. Carla Esparza, I know that she's like mortal enemy of Cody Saftic, but
no,
she
buried
can.
the hatchet
The girl can wrestle. She's got, and I think her biggest skill that she's got is fight IQ. Like she's always kind of knows where she is in a fight, unless she's backed up against the cage, just eating strikes. But for the most part, she secures those takedowns, and she controls the action. The over/under is juiced to -400 to the over. So it's just like, there's nothing you can really do with that. I'm leaning towards wrestling 3 rounds. Carla, take her down and secure some takedowns for a couple rounds and just hold on for dear life in round 3. Not a spot that I think I have much of a mathematical edge in, but I trust I believe in the line movement that we've seen from the +150 to the +100. I think this is, closer to a pick'em type of fight, and Esparza will be my pick, no bet. What about you?
Yeah, I would probably say that the best path here is just hit a pass all around. But so when it opens up and you get plus money, Carla Esparza, it's almost just like an automatic bet because it's a dog or pass situation, right? Who's the underdog? Both of them are going to have chances to win this fight. Zhao Yanan, she's looking a lot better. She's definitely progressing in her career and starting to pick up some significant victories. Defeats Angela Hill, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and then Claudia Gadelha her last time out. So she's fighting the best level of talent that she can at this point, and she's kind of positioning herself near a title shot. And same thing with Carla Esparza. Both of these women are probably vying for the number 1 contender spot. Carla Esparza hasn't. You mentioned the fact that she's just the over/under is pretty accurate. Carla Esparza is just a grinding machine. She hasn't finished anybody in 6 years. But the last person she finished was Rose Namajunas. So figures to be if she wins this fight that she's probably going to get a title shot. I think Zan's pretty well close herself, right? Again, I mean, when you look at a Carla Esparza, it's going to decision. They're going to be close decisions, right? She's in the last 4 fights that she's been on, her 4-fight winning streak. They're all these close decision, Paul. The Marina Rodriguez fights, it's a split decision. You got Carla landing the takedowns. You got Rodriguez being the better striker. It just depends who 2 of the 3 judges are going to be. What do they prefer? Do they prefer a little bit of grappling? Do they prefer a little bit of striking? Is there a perceived damage or aggression? What are they physically scoring? The fight prior, Michelle Watterson, it's a split decision. What do you prefer? What are you looking at? But even the Alexa Grasso fight, majority decision. Verna Jandra, no, but that one was pretty clear to me, right? Claudia Gadelha, split decision. The Ronda Marcos fight, which was a split decision. It's just littered right across the board with these close decisions, right? She has that kind of style. The Michelle Watterson fight, I was a little disappointed in that she wasn't able to get the fight to the ground beyond that first round. She gets the fight to the ground at the end of the first. After the first, she can't get the fight to the ground anymore. She's coming up short on these takedown attempts. So she just resorts to just brawling her, moving forward and brawling her. And Carla wins the fight, moving forward and throwing hands with Michelle Watterson. Like, yeah, you're like you mentioned, she's got good ring IQ. If she can't win the fight in her preferred realm, it's like she'll find the next best thing and move to it. She won't just stick to the wrestling. She'll strike if she needs to. But at 33 years old, there's just always been a feeling of just like there's something limited there. Like, is she really going to get the next title shot? Like, I don't know. You give me plus money on her, plus 135, plus 140 as an opener, you're going to bet that. Mm-hmm. Now that it's, around even money, I kind of got it the other way. I think that with Yan, it's like she probably just stuffs more of these takedowns than not, keeps the fight standing, lands the more impactful shots. Yeah. What are the judges going to score? Are they going to just score Carla Esparza grinding on her up against the cage? Is Carla Esparza going to get her to the ground? Carla's got this thing where even jabs will swell her up and it doesn't look good. I just think that she's going to get sprawl and brawled. Even if she does get the takedowns like Claudia Gadelha, she's going to have to work for them. Yan eventually gets up. Yan eventually lands the more telling blows. The official pick is going to be Yan, but I think I just got to take a pass on this fight from a betting standpoint. Unless I was going to parlay the fight goes the distance, because I agree. Even at minus 300 or minus 400 for the fight goes the distance. I see either lady wins this fight. This thing's going 15 minutes.
Yeah, I minus 400. It's hard to be really inspired by that on a total. Things can happen. I mean, like, and you got to worry that Carlos Esparza gets on top, doesn't advance position, it ends up like a catch a beating versus Mizani situation. The ref stands it up. Like, it's kind of, I mean, it worked out well for me, but I would have been pretty pissed off if I had any money on Mizani in that spot. I'll just leave it at that. All right, that's fair enough. It doesn't seem like we're very interested in that tilt. We got Justin Tafa taking on Jared Vanderaa, minus 175 Tafa, plus 150 Vanderaa. Vanderaa, he beat Harry Hunsucker on Contender Series, pretty low level fight, and then we saw Hunsucker again, and we really kind of realized when he took on Tuivasa, and you're like, oh wow. This guy really had no business being around here whatsoever. Vanderaa comes out, and Sergey Spivak just served him an absolute beatdown. I think I was on the over 1.5 in that spot. It never felt good at any point in the fight, and it didn't. No, it lost. That was that was a losing wager. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was
the 1.5. It was
430. Oh wait, maybe it did. Maybe it did hit. I can't remember. There's so many fights ago. But was it 1.5? Maybe I was on. I think it may have been on like fight starts round 3. I feel I remember pain, Cody. I remember pain, but it never really felt like a good bet whatsoever. And it was just completely on the thought that Jared Vanderaa, he enjoys getting punched in the head. If he gets the opportunity to get a microphone in front of his face this week, he will call himself ugly. And he will say how much he enjoys getting hit in the head. Well, Justin Tafa is going to try to hit him in the head. Does Vanderaa have a big wrestling advantage here? Is that something that he could go to? Maybe it's a possibility. But, I mean, he seems like a pretty low-level heavyweight in this spot. And actually, Tafa against Carlos Felipe last time out kind of impressed me. The fact that he was able to, like, it was in a losing effort, but that was like about as close of a decision as you ever get. He had more significant strikes than Carlos Felipe in the grand scheme of the entire fight. Felipe started to get tired later in the fight, so it's possible, even if he doesn't knock him out, that he's just got, as long as he can push away takedowns, stop takedowns from Jared Vanderaa, I think Tafa gets the job done here. I don't know if he wins by knockout. But yeah, Tafa's the pick here. It's really hard for me to get behind Jared Vanderaa. What's your take?
Yeah, I think you take Tafa. The only way you get behind Vanderaa is if you're going to live bet Vanderaa. If for some reason, if he's able to survive going into a third round, Tafa's real tired, this guy can get on top, then that's his best path. I mean, really, when you break down fighters a lot of the time, it's like, this guy's best path is his striking. This guy's got his wrestling. This guy's got his jiu-jitsu. This guy wins fights based on his cardio. Vanderaa, it's like he's got ground and pound. If he can end up on top of you, he is a mountain of a man. He's a big boy. He's a big boy with some big old hands on him. And when he gets raining down punishment on some of these heavyweights that are tired, that's where he has success. You look at his regional show run. I mean, it's not even overly impressive. He had LFA title shots in the past. He just, for whatever reason, it comes up short. He's got the losses to Richard Odoms, a 40-year-old police officer. Went to EFC Africa and lost to Andrew Van Zyl. The Vernon Lewis fight. Henan Ferreira, who I guess just beat Fabricio Verdum. Did he, ish? So you give him a pass on that one. But the wins are just very low level, right? He's fought in, either long in the tooth journeymen or guys that just shouldn't have been in there with him. Now he's one of these guys that trained out of Dan Henderson's camp in Temecula, California. He's big, he's rugged, he's half durable in that he can take a shot, but he's one of these guys also that if you land clean on him, and a lot of guys do land clean on him, is not defensively sound, he's going to topple over. You see that in the Harry Hunsucker fight, right? Jared Vanderaa is coming in this fight. He's a big favorite. As I mentioned, he's a former LFA heavyweight title challenger. Trains with Dan Henderson, who's always a big name, good guy to have in your corner. He's getting a Contender Series fight. He just beat Tony Lopez, who in 2020, in this day and age, not exactly a huge win, but it is still Tony Lopez. He's got that name. So we give him a fight on Contender Series. And he comes in as a near 3-1 favorite over Harry Hunsucker. And I mean, Harry Hunsucker's unloading on him early in the first minute or two of that fight. I'm thinking, oh my God, what is going on here? Jared Vanderaa is just very hittable. Doesn't move his head, slow, flat-footed, plodding, and these guys are going to be able to hit him. But as soon as he gets a hold of him and he ends up on top of him, it was game over. He pounds out Harry Hunsucker. Now, as you alluded to, Harry Hunsucker, low-level competition, right? Fair. But that's just a story of Vanderaa. Standing, he's almost just too hittable. As soon as he gets a hold of you, and if he's able to fall on top of you, because wrestling, not great, but if he ends up on top of you, he's going to give you a world of problems. The Sergey Spivak fight, Sergey Spivak's not a great kickboxer as well, but better than Vanderaa, at least slightly anyways. It was that grappling realm where he was a better wrestler and grappler than Vanderaa. So how was Vanderaa ever going to get on top of Spivak when Spivak was going to be the one dictating where the fight takes place? At least in this particular spot against Justin Tafa, Justin Tafa's not taking him down. Justin Tafa's not looking to initiate these grappling exchanges, I wouldn't think. If Vanderaa is going to win this fight, it's going to be on the basis of surviving that first round, round and a half, maybe even 2 rounds, and then hopefully capitalize after that. I just don't think he's going to quite get there. Tafa came into the UFC. They did this guy no favors, right? He fights Yorgan De Castro. Seems like a winnable fight, sure. But you're 4-0. Sorry, he's 3-0 at the time. Mm-hmm. He's got virtually no MMA experience. He's making his UFC debut on the main card of a pay-per-view, Whitaker Adesanya, in his own backyard. Talk about a tough spot, man. The crowd's there. This is your debut. You got the jitters. It's a pay-per-view main card. You're on it with a 3-0 record, and he comes up short, bonehead decision, runs straight into the Yorgan De Castro counter. Fair enough. They rebook him versus Juan Adams, right? This fight also takes place on a pay-per-view main card. UFC 247, Jones versus Reyes. They had faith in the guy. And he goes out there, and he looked infinitely better. Mind you, the fight's only 2 minutes long against Juan Adams. He knocks him out. I just thought he just looked a lot more comfortable. He looked like he looked in better shape. He's getting comfortable. Now you get the Carlos Felipe fight. Not a great performance from him, but all of his other fights are early finishes. Second round finish, 28 seconds into the first, 30 seconds into the second, 2:10 into the first was his debut, minute 59 into the first against Juan Adams. Getting him 3 hard rounds in there, all good. It's all good, part of fighter development. Carlos Felipe was the better fighter that night. He was the better fighter going in. He was the better fighter going out. But my God, Tafa tested him big time. He did win the striking exchanges. You know, he did late down in the stretch as he was getting tired, resort to, clinching up the big man against the cage, using some decent tactics in there. He did stuff the lone takedown attempt from Carlos Felipe. And he looked like he's building. He's still young. He's still green. He's still only 4-2. No doubt the experience advantage goes to Vanderaa, but I do like the improvements that he's seemingly making from a fight-to-fight basis. So my pick's going to be Tafa, and I think he should be able to get this one done by knockout. But Tafa's got a round and a half to get this thing done by knockout. After that, if you got a big plus money tag on Vanderaa, he's not dead yet. He's still moving forward. He could potentially be a threat to these tickets the longer this thing goes. So hopefully Tafa takes him out early, but I'm going to keep my eye on it from a live betting perspective as well.
Yeah, that's probably the best way because even Tafa by knockout is -100 or +100 at one place that you can go, -120 at another. I don't want to hit that. I don't want to hit the -1 and the -175 that I posted. It's like these -200 in other places. It's is a 4-2 heavyweight that's shown plenty of spots where he's been a letdown.
Yeah.
Is he 66% winner against anybody in this division? I don't know. Losing to Yorgan De Castro, and then De Castro goes on after that to lose to
huge bust. Yeah.
Everybody really. Wait, I had it queued up right here. Yeah, loses to him, and then Greg Hardy, Carlos Felipe, and Yarges Danho all beat him. So, he's only 27. That is his saving grace. Tai Tuivasa. Yeah. Did he travel with Tai Tuivasa when Tuivasa moved camps and all of that? Or is he just still in Australia? I have to look into that.
Yeah, I thought he was still in Australia, but yeah, his brother's a Glory kickboxing champion. His cousins are fighters. It's a family affair. And him being so young, him still needing to put his game together, that's what I'm kind of getting behind, is that he will eventually put it all together. He's the striking, much better striker than Vanderaa. The wrestling, the grappling, the cardio, potentially Vanderaa has the advantage. I just don't think the advantage is big enough. You know, it'd be hard taking this guy down, man. These Samoan guys, they got low center of gravity. Like once they figure out how to use it, it's going to be. Remember Mark Hunt couldn't stuff a takedown from anybody. Quite literally everybody takes the guy down. And then remember he did like 2 camps at ATT, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, whoa, how did he do that? Like he's got hips. It was like, yeah, he went to American Top Team and worked with the best guys in the world for a year and a half. And, you know, and then he eventually went back to Australia and was getting taken down again, but he was also in his 40s. Tafa's 27. If he just gets a little bit better, fight to fight, a little bit better, it'd be enough to take out Vanderaa. I don't like this price tag though, minus 175. So I hate to keep saying pass. So I will make a pick. It will be Justin Tafa, but you know, it could get a better price on it.
Sounds like we're in the same boat. All right, we got Felicia Spencer taking on Norma Dumont. Minus 170 Spencer, plus 150 Dumont. Over 2.5 rounds, minus 180. Under 2.5 rounds is plus 150. I mean, Dumont's had a bit of a tumultuous career, or up and down, I guess you can say, in the UFC. Comes in on pretty short notice at 145 pounds, where this fight will be taking place, and gets absolutely flatlined by Megan Anderson. Says, okay, let's move down. Moves down to 135, and she weighs in at 139.5 pounds, so misses weight completely. Not a great scene, but she beats Ashley Evans Smith, who had been fighting at 125. So massive physical advantages there. It's kind of a general trend of her career. Obviously, she was supposed to take on Erin Blanchfield last time out, who was like another 125-pounder, moving up on short notice to 135. And Dumont misses again, coming in at 139, and they're just like, we can't do this fight. We can't continue to give you this amount of like a weight advantage when your game plan is to take your opponent down and just smother them. Like it's not fair. Clearly you can't fight in this weight class, but she's kind of undersized for 145. Spencer, I mean, I'm surprised because like Spencer opened up at like minus 265. Action has been coming in on Norma Dumont. What have they seen? You know, last time we see Spencer, she goes 5 rounds with the lady goat. At least we know that she's tough. Spencer seems like, I mean, you have Tafa at minus 175, Spencer at minus 170. What am I missing here? Because it seems like Spencer is, I mean, at least in the first 4 fights there, is the play.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's not that I disagree. I just think it's another case of the line being too big at the opener. You have Felicia Spencer, who should be the rightful favorite, but it's women's MMA, man. It's 145 pounds as well. So the fight's probably going to be close, probably going to be competitive, and it could be a relatively competitive decision, right? So why would you want to pay an over 2-to-1 price tag on Felicia Spencer, who, what's the claim to fame? The claim to fame is that she went 5 rounds with Amanda Nunes, and it was gutsy performance, right? Lost every single minute of every single round, but gutsy performance against her. I think she opened up a cut at one point and, you know, kept trucking forward, went 25 minutes, but then that's it. She's been off a year since then. So not a whole lot that you can take out of her. When she was fighting for Invicta prior, and even in the UFC, in her own fights against Megan Anderson and Zara Farron, and I mean, even the Cyborg Justino fight, there's another situation where she went 3 rounds with Cyborgs. We know she's tough. We know she's durable, but the striking's not quite there, right? She pulls up short on a lot of her punches. It's pretty much rudimentary, 1-2s. You see a lot of it coming. You can figure out her timing. You can figure out her rhythm. She's not a big threat in the striking. What she does do is she's continuously coming forward. She's trying to wear on you. She's trying to get a hold of you. She's trying to get you to the ground. Even in the Invicta fight, same thing. She needs to get you to the ground. That's where she's going to shine. BJJ black belt, fluid, efficient on the ground. The only reason she ever even got a fight versus Cyborg and a fight versus Amanda Nunes is, there's not a whole lot of girls in the division, but at least on paper, she presented a physical threat of the takedown and the grappling. This girl's very good if she's able to get you to the ground. She's durable enough to take the punches, but she needs to get the fight to the ground. It's that the wrestling's just not quite there either. So a lot of it's her coming forward, but her not actually doing a whole lot. So I think that the worry here in the Norma Dumont fight, if you're betting her as a big favorite, is that Dumont also fancies herself a grappler. I believe she's a judo black belt. She's got the BJJ. That is her background. She is a good grappler. She wanted to come down to 135 to be the bigger, stronger physical girl that'd be able to use that grappling even more, but it's just not going to work out. So how does she match up versus Felicia Spencer? Well, they're both primarily grapplers. They're both bigger girls fighting up at 145 pounds, even though, they've attempted to make 35 at different various times. Spencer looks like she can make 135 all day, just chooses not to. Dumont wants to make 35, just can't. But we can agree that they have similar styles and that they're both primarily grapplers. I don't know who I'd give the edge to. I guess I would give it to Felicia Spencer, but I don't know that it's enough that she's going to consistently go out there and take Norma Dumont down. So if this thing stays standing, who do you give the advantage to?
I don't know.
Like, right. Neither of them are good
Felicia
strikers at all.
Spencer was going to be the lock of all locks. She's supposed to take on that Danielle Wolf that they found on the Contender Series, who had zero takedown defense. So it was going to be,
because you have a pro boxer.
One way, yeah, it was going to be one-way traffic. It's constant takedowns, and I don't think Wolf was going to be like, I don't know who they match that Wolf up with, because it's going to be a tough scene. She did not. I mean, that was like one of the ones on Contender Series. Like at the end, you're just like, Dana hands her the contract, and you're just like, what is going on here? We're obviously in a new era of UFC.
Yeah, I mean, the fight to make would have been her versus Megan Anderson. Sorry, but I mean, even then, James Krause would have been like, just take her down, right? Like that's the path. You want to match her up against strikers, but there's just not enough strikers at the weight class. So yeah, Felicia Spencer would have been, and it was the same thing versus Felicia Spencer versus Zara Farron. Zara Farron is a primary striker, not going to stuff the takedown, going to be in a lot of trouble once the fight ends up on the ground. So Felicia Spencer can have her way in those spots. Now that you've matched her up against the greatest fighters of all time in Amanda Nunes and Cyborg, yeah, okay, I get that the takedowns don't materialize there. The pressure's there. And this is another fight where, again, are the judges just going to look at the forward pressure and say, well, Spencer was coming forward and she was letting her hands go a little bit. Just, I think Norma Dumont was landing the better shots and mostly circling away. They clinched up a little bit. The fight might have hit the mat. I don't know that it's huge advantage either way. It was not a bettable line for Felicia Spencer at opener. So at least, because a lot of people have got in on the dog action on Dumont, at least it makes it more, it's a little more adjusted. Like if you want to bet Spencer at minus 170 now, you could probably justify that a little bit better than 240 at open, right? I think she wins. Dumont's coming in on short notice considering she's supposed to fight, misses weight, bad on the body. UFC says, no, you're not fighting. Bad mentally. Shit, my employer's mad at me. I had a bad weight cut. You're around in limbo. Do you go back home? Do you fly back to Brazil? There's the what ifs. Am I going to be offered another fight? Are they going to force me to go back to 145? And then bam, you get a short notice opportunity. You take it. You want to stay in their good books. You want to stay in their good graces. You did just put a full camp in to get ready, but your body physically peaked 2 weeks ago and then shut down during a weight cut. And then you got bailed and now you're getting rebooked here. Like, yeah, I'm going to say Spencer's got the advantage there. Spencer's got the advantage in experience. I would give her the slight grappling edge, cardio edge. I'm going to give her as well. I'm just worried if this thing stays standing and she doesn't get this fight to the ground, then I'm holding a Felicia Spencer minus 170 ticket. It's still a little too much, let alone what it opened at. So like you said, am I missing anything? I don't think you're missing anything. I just think because again, women's MMA 145, close competitive fight, both of them primarily grapplers. It'll be close and you can have a greasy decision. And at that price, it's like, it's an auto spam bet on the underdog. The plus money is just too good, right? Yeah.
I mean, if this stays 3 rounds on the feet, be a good time for a bathroom break. David Dvorak takes on Raulian Paiva, minus 135 Dvorak, plus 115 Paiva. Who you got?
Yeah, I don't know. This one's got me bugged out. I was so off on Ludovic Klein from the other week. I mean, Ludovic Klein came to the UFC. He looked exceptionally good in his debut against Young. Knocks out Shane Young with a head kick. It's like, damn, this guy's got, he's well experienced. He's fought some decent guys on his own personal, the Czech regional scene to get here. It looks like he's got the skills, but against Mike Trezano, and I don't even think he's bad. The kid's still very young. He's still got that skills. It's just Trezano was the Ultimate Fighter champion. Trezano's got a little bit of experience in the division. He's fought in a couple okay guys. Like it was just a case of a little bit too much too soon. And I kind of get that impression a little bit with David Dvorak when he came from the same scene, the Czech regional scene. He's another one of these guys that's got a deep record in terms of opponents that he's defeated, right? Decent guys for that regional scene. But how does this translate to the UFC? You're never really going to know. So similar to Ludovic Klein, he jumps in there and it's just like he looks good against Bruno Silva in his debut. It's a close fight. It's a competitive fight. We're going to talk about Bruno Silva a little bit later in the card. And that's a quality victory. I mean, Bruno Silva is one of the right-hand man training partners of the Pitbull brothers and Henry Cejudo. Like he's inner circle guys with those guys. going hard every day, making a lot of improvements, staying out in Arizona, doing everything that he needs to do to improve. David Dvorak just comes in UFC debut, young kid off the bench, and defeats him, right? Close fight, 1-1 in my opinion going to the third. David Dvorak pulls through. Good learning experience. The Jordan Espinoza fight. Jordan Espinoza no longer with the promotion. Had a pretty lackluster run with the UFC overall, I would say. But again, these are good learning block fights for David Dvorak. But now he gets Rolian Paiva, and it's a situation of like, is that a little bit too much too soon? Like, we could slow build this guy a little bit, but it's 125 pounds. So just the division's not quite big enough to slow build anybody. And so eventually these guys are going to have to meet with each other. And Rolian Paiva's in a fairly similar situation. He's only 25 years old. They're young. These guys are young, up and comers in the weight class. It's that Paiva's done more, right? He's got the win over Zhalgas Zhumagulov his last time out. The Bontrain fight, man, he was coming on. Like, Bontrain busted him up at the cut, but otherwise, he's going to beat Rogerio Bontrain. I'm very firm on that one, right? The Kai Kara France fights, like, goddamn, guy takes a UFC debut in the other guy's backyard, wins, and gets robbed on a scorecard. But it's all like, I like what I see out of Rolian Paiva. Again, this guy's taking these tough fights, not doing himself any favors, making a lot of improvements as he go. So David Dvorak's, again, on paper, what I'm seeing, I'm going to give him the slight edge. But I go back to that thing where it's like, what you see is limited competition. You know, Bruno Silva tests him. It's his debut, you know, give him a pass there. His last time out, not the most competitive outing. But it's Jordan Espinoza. Like, how much do you take from that? His entire regional scene career, similar to Ludovic Klein, it's like, I just don't know how much you can weigh on that. Whereas I know with Rolian Paiva, I know with Rolian Paiva, it's like, this guy's getting better. This guy's got good striking. He's awkward. He's hard to time. He's able to catch a lot of these guys with his overhands. He's aggressive. Cardio seems to be good. And Zhalgas Zhumagulov was my boy. I love Zhalgas. But Zhalgas is another one of these guys that coming out of the Kazakhstan regional scene, the Kazakh regional scene. Very nice. Yeah, very, very nice. He looked very nice. This guy looked tremendous. You know, he's the ACB. There was a questionable decision along the way, but it's like he had a lot of skills, right? He had great cardio. I mean, he's another one of these awkward guys that's hard to time, loves to throw the overhand, strong, hard to take down, hard to grind. And I thought he got robbed personally in his UFC debut. He was coming in here with a chip on his shoulder, and Paiva just absolutely shut him down and looked good. So not to bet the favorite in all these spots, it's like, this is a dog with a chance. Rolian Paiva definitely plus 115, a dog with a chance. I think he's got the bigger experience. I think he's got to pressure this guy. I think he's got to get to him. It's just, what I mean by that is he's got to test him, because it doesn't appear that David Dvorak's really been tested all that much. Whereas Paiva has that big show experience, right? He's had to do the traveling. He's come in as a big underdog. He's got robbed on a decision. He's faced a little adversity, and he's bounced back pretty good from that, winning his last two fights. So I know he's been off nearly a year now since the Zhalgas fight, but the way I justify that in my head is that he's 25 years old. How many improvements can a 25-year-old make in a 10-month period of time? Like, oh yeah, a lot. So if he continues to trend towards the right direction, this is going to be a good fight, a close fight, a competitive fight, but I got it marked closer to 50-50. And so for that reason, I'm going to label it a dog or pass and go with Rolian Paiva at plus 115.
Seems to make sense to me. We got Jack the Joker Hermansson taking on Edmund Shahbazyan in a fight that was canceled due to COVID protocols. I mean, maybe a month ago. Prices more or less stay the same. Minus 150 Hermansson, plus 130 Shahbazyan. Where is your head at on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's strange matchmaking. I'd like to know the reasoning behind it. Like, I'm sure Shahbazyan, I wouldn't say was offered a list of opponents and specifically picked Jack Hermansson, but he must have campaigned for a ranked opponent. He must have campaigned for a grappler so that he could prove that his last time out was just an off night. But I don't understand why you would take a kid, 23 years old. Again, well, this goes back to exactly what we were just talking about, actually, in the last fight with David Dvorak. It's like, is it too much too soon? Because the UFC has a tendency of signing these 21, 22, 23-year-old kids. And I have a tendency of betting them, the Zhu Rongs of the world. And it's just like, it is too much too soon. It's not to say that they won't be good down the road, but even just like you see those memes of Charles Oliveira and Jan Blachowicz. It's like Jan starts off 2-4 in the UFC. That goes on an 8-1 run, wins a title. Chucky O is 10-8 in the UFC. You know, everybody questions his heart every time they break down a fight from him. And now he goes on like a 9-1 or 9-0 run, wins the UFC title, right? My God, right? Talk about impressive, talk about turning it around. But again, it's like You come to the UFC, it's like you need to go through those early career setbacks and adversity. At 23, it's like, my God, these guys operating at a world-class level. But that's it. The UFC signs him. He's got a great story. He's on the Contender Series. He gets the win on the Contender Series. So you bring him into the fold. The Darren Stewart fight, his debut, he does not look good against Darren Stewart, right? That's not a very good performance from him whatsoever against Stewart. But again, you chalk it up to UFC debut. The Charles Bird fight, soft matchup. Jack Marshman, very favorable soft matchup. Beats Brad Tavares. And now he's just won a premier fight. Now you got to move him along. Now that he's just knocked out a guy like Brad Tavares, a well-known gatekeeper within the division, there's no turning back. And you get a Derek Brunson who absolutely just ragdolls and pillar to post, takes him down multiple times, and is eventually able to just tire him out and finish him off. Going into that third round, I mean, you just saw from body language, he's exhausted, he's tired, it's a bad spot for him. The UFC need to A, give him some time off to develop, and B, bring him back against some of these lower-end caliber guys. Not Jack Marshman, one of the better wrestler grapplers of the division. So I just don't think they did him any favors. And
No.
I think Marshman, as much as he's not looking great lately, it should be enough. It should be enough for him eventually to drag this fight to the ground. He's actually known for having pretty solid cardio. So I would give the striking advantage to Shahbazyan, but I think it's only a matter of time before Hermansson's able to figure out the range, get a hold of this guy, clinch him up against the cage, peel him to the ground, and then give him a world of hurt once he's there. One thing about Derek Brunson is that he's known for when he gets the fight to the ground, secures it to the ground, not huge on like ground and pound or anything. And yet the manner in which he TKOs Shahbazyan's body is just, he's done. It's shutting down on him. He's tired. I don't understand the matchmaking. I don't understand why you would take this young kid who's got a promising future, who can headline shows for you down the road. He's good looking. He's had an exciting fight style, and you don't give him a good stylistical clash for him, but also you give him like a name brand ranked opponent, a guy that's got wins over guys like Jacare Souza and Kelvin Gastelum and look good doing it both times. And I don't know. It's just, again, has operated with some of the best guys in the planet. How is that a bounce back fight for somebody? I don't know, but the line to me, it seems pretty justified. It seems pretty fair, and I got to go to Jack Hermansson to get the job done.
I'm with you as well. I think we were always on that same page. I mean, the only way I would even consider a Shahbazyan play is if I was playing like a round 1, round 2 type of prop, like knockout in those early rounds. Like, I think the longer that this fight goes, we saw, especially if Jack Hermansson is securing takedowns from the get-go. I don't think very much. Yeah, there hasn't been all that much time passing since that last time, so I'm sure he's made improvements. But arguably, this is a step up in competition from Derek Brunson. On top of that, so I don't really understand it. Maybe but I still haven't bet Jack Hermansson because I'm kind of scared because it feels kind of too easy. I don't know. I think when they were supposed to headline that last card, weren't they? Or it was like way up the card or something.
Well, I don't know if it was supposed to headline, but I think it was up the card. With Hermansson though, right? And if you look at his last fights against Marvin Vettori, right, who's the number 1 contender essentially, the fight goes 5 hard rounds. Jack actually loses the first 2, comes back and wins the third, or he might have won the first 3, comes back and wins the fourth. Like is losing and still fighting way to the end. Thing goes 5 hard rounds. He manages to take him down twice. He lands 122 significant strikes. He gets dropped, gets up, and ticks on. Like, in a losing effort, pretty complete performance, right? Whereas Shahbazyan absolutely got demoed by Brunson. Like, it's a strain. And then they give it minus 150. Like, I'm actually agreeing with you. It's like, what am I missing? But
well, I mean,
too good to be true. But I see it. I understand it.
Historically, the Hermansson like devastating losses. Cannonier knocks him out. Round 2, ground and pound. Thiago Santos knocks him out.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess Edmund Shahbazyan by knockout is what they're thinking and what's keeping this line in check.
Sure, fair enough.
If you were ever going to bet Shahbazyan, if you're like, oh, these guys are idiots, these guys are wrong, I would just take the plus 265 Shahbazyan by knockout I see out there. That seems like a much better play, in my opinion. I think the longer this fight goes, we're going to see the same gas tank issues from him. And if Jack's able to get takedowns, it's pretty much done. A fight that I'll be very, very closely watching and hopefully catching the trigger before they pull it off of the market if Jack gets like an early takedown kind of thing. Bill Algeo, your boy, takes on Ricardo Ramos. Minus 120
My
Algeo.
boy.
Plus 100 Ramos. He got.
Yeah, I gotta go with Billy Algeo again. I mean, again, if they're gonna give these guys middling, medium level fights, he's gonna be a cash cow for me. I'm gonna love to bet him. I'm gonna bet him in a lot of these spots. Bill Algeo brings a lot to the table. He's a BJJ black belt. He owns his own gym in New Jersey. Kickboxing pretty good, cardio good, pace good, length, good physical, body type, rangy guy. Pretty much got it all. Knows how to wrestle a little bit, like great gas tank on him, good heart, and he's starting to accrue some experience, and that's the main thing. He's not old, not young, but coming into the UFC, it's like he's already done a lot on the regional scene. He's already fought in some decent guys. He's earned his way to the UFC. It's his time to shine here, right? Loses to Ricardo Lamas in his debut. What? Similar to questionable matchmaking. Who makes their UFC debut against Ricardo Lamas? A perennial top 5, top 10 guy now that he's a little bit older, a former UFC title challenger, guy that's been there and done that and fought the best guys in the weight class. Like, you're going to make a debut against him, and he was competitive. That's my biggest takeaway there, is that coming in, he was almost like, not body type, not fight style-wise, but like credentials, he's almost just like a step behind Ricardo Lamas in every aspect. Like, Bill Algeo wrestled a little bit in high school. He knows how to wrestle. Like, Ricardo Lamas wrestled collegiately. He was a much better, much more successful wrestler. It's like, Bill Algeo is a black belt. It's like Ricardo Lamas is a black belt. He submitted Charles Oliveira. Like, his black belt's real legit. Like, no advantage there. It's like, Bill Algeo's got good output and good striking. It's like, nah, man, Ricardo Lamas is much better striking. I mean, remember the Cub Swanson fight back in the day where he like lands like the wheel kick on him? It's like, man, he's technically refined. Experience. One guy's making his debut. One guy's already fought for a world title. Like, this shouldn't have been competitive, but I liked what I saw out of Bill Algeo. He brought the pressure on him. He lands 89 significant strikes, a takedown, fights all the way through 15 minutes. Even though Lamas is a huge favorite, even though you and me and everybody else I know was on Ricardo Lamas heavy, Bill Algeo presented a fight. He presented, I wouldn't call it a full sweat, but it's like there was moments where it's like, oh my God, he's hitting Lamas and he's hurting Lamas, and Lamas is tiring, and he bails himself out with the takedowns. But I like what I saw Algeo. So yeah, I was all over Algeo his next time out against Spike Carlisle on the basis of I liked what I saw out of him versus Ricardo Lamas. And with Spike Carlisle, I mean, Billy Q already wrote the blueprint on him. It's like, yeah, maybe he takes you down, but just keep working him, get back up. He'll tire. He's so physical and so strong, such a brute. That's like, if you just put a pace on this guy, you're going to beat him. And that's what Algeo does. It's the same thing, He basically triples him up on the significant strikes, but every time Spike Carlisle would close the distance, get a hold of him and peel him to the ground, he'd work his way back up. Fundamentally, he's extremely sound, but he keeps himself safe. Doesn't take a whole lot of damage, and he makes you work. One thing of that fight is that he gives up the clinch rather too easy to Spike Carlisle, but you get in a cage with Spike Carlisle and try to get the guy off of you. You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of a specimen in that regard. He sticks onto you like glue. It's that when Billy would get taken down by Spike, he really had a lot of trouble with the physicality. Bill gets taken down by Spike. You just push him off and get back up. Made him work the entire time. I thought it was a pretty good performance, and I thought that the output was definitely there, considering he had a guy that was just looking to take him down the entire time. So Ricardo Ramos, again, you got guys that are similar stylistically in that Ricardo Ramos is also a BJJ black belt. Who do you give the advantage to? I guess you'd say that submission game probably goes to Ramos, but Bill Algeo is going to be okay. He's not going to be in trouble. I don't think he's going to get out grappled. Ramos doesn't have great wrestling, but he's got a great ability to take the back because he's got these long legs on him that what he'll do is he'll pressure you up against the cage. He'll try to get maybe a waist lock on you, and he'll just throw the hook in, jump on top of your back, and then ride that out. But with Bill Algeo, even though he's a tall guy and he's prone to giving up the back, I think he's going to be okay. The wrestling, I give it slight advantage maybe to Algeo. It's that this thing's going to primarily stay outstanding. And whereas Ricardo Ramos is not a fish out of water with his own striking, he's just going to fall behind on the numbers.
I agree.
You go back to his own fight with like the Journey Newson fight. He lands 40 significant strikes. For the most part, I mean, he's just sitting there staring at him. You get a lot of these other spots. Again, people remember the Aben Zahabi fight because the spinning back elbow. What they don't remember is him gassing out in the second, losing the second, and just spamming it a couple times to get into the third. The Saeed Nurmagomedov fight, he gets knocked out with the spinning back kick, but again, he has no volume. He just stands there, lands 2 strikes through the first 3 minutes of the fight before he gets TKO'd. The Journey Newson fight, 40 he's relying on his own takedowns. There's no output. I just don't think there's quite enough out of him. And then he goes out there against Lerone Murphy and gets knocked out in his last time out. The fight's a year ago. He's now had a year off. Remember he was throwing those stupid little like behind the calf, like it's like those kicks he was trying to land too. The whole thing didn't bode well for me. Didn't bode well for me at all. I think he's gonna have trouble getting this fight to the ground. He'll mostly stay outstanding. Bill Algeo is gonna intercept him at range, beat him up. So the play is gonna be Bill Algeo. I'm feeling Bill Algeo by decision would be the path, but because it's minus 120 and I got burned by props pretty good last week, I'm just gonna hit the money line.
Yeah,
so that's where my heart's at on this one.
You gotta walk before you can run, right? I'm with you. I think Algeo just wins based on volume. He just lands more. Like Ramos, you go through all of his stats and stuff. I think the most he's ever landed strikes wise is like 50 significant strikes. Like that's just not gonna get it done. You're not gonna win unless you're getting finishes by submission or getting knockouts. You just don't win decisions if you're only throwing 50 significant strikes out there every single fight. All right, next one up. Ben Rothwell has a new opponent. It seems like every single week this has happened to us. Obviously, there's 3 times that Felipe... What is going on with Felipe Lins? Because, like, you go through Tapology. He withdrew, obviously, last time. Not medically cleared to compete the time before. And undisclosed injury the time before that. Something weird is going on with Felipe Lins. But that fight is gone. We don't even have to really waste too much time on that. Ben Rothwell taking on promotional newcomer Chris Barnett. Ben Rothwell minus 300. Barnett is plus 250. Obviously, after Lins pulled out, then there was this guy Askar Moskarov. He was like a 205 pounder, which is like 205 pounder versus 265 pound man. Just didn't really seem to make all that much sense. But he had visa issues, so then Barnett gets the call. Barnett is a 5'9" heavyweight, and like he's thick, but not in a good way. Like he just looks like a fat man, to be perfectly honest. I mean, props to him for showing up. I think he seems pretty entertaining from what I've watched on tape. Like he comes to fight, seems to have a pretty good chin. But it's very, very, very like, what's the word I'm looking? Very awkward kind of style. I don't know. I'm not all that impressed. He seems like he's, like a middleweight or maybe a welterweight that just doesn't give a fuck type of thing. The one number, because I mean, Ben Rothwell by knockout, and he doesn't really knock out too many guys, is like close to a pick'em. Yeah, Rothwell by knockout is like plus 125, plus 110 you can see out there. Can we get back to that 5-finger thing that Ben used to do? I see an 11-1, Cody. I'm thinking greasy. Maybe I'm just like riding high off of last week's props, but Ben Rothwell, submission, 11-1. Tell me why that's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea considering what Ben Rothwell's capable of when he's at his best.
He hasn't been at his best in a long time.
He submitted Josh Barnett. What more do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that he tested positive after that, took 3 years off from the sport, returned as a near 40-year-old man, and has just been a lot slower than he even was to begin with. There's not a whole lot that you can get behind Ben Rothwell. Getting appointed by Stefan Struve up until he got the knockout, like he's going to lose 2 rounds.
This is his easiest fight in a long time.
It's definitely, it's his easiest fight in a long time considering he's been fighting a lot of name brand guys, and now he's taking on Chris Barnett, who's like years removed. He's like 5 or 6 years removed from should have been in the UFC. He's on the tail end of his own crazy freak show-ish career. But he's a huge guy, man. He's only 5'8", 5'9", so I think he's the shortest heavyweight in modern era UFC history, right? The only other guy that would have been that tall would have been Jeff Monson. You know what I mean? Like these guys, there's a reason why there's not 5'8" heavyweights. There's a reason why there's not 5'9" heavyweights. As you alluded to, he's got the frame of a middleweight, probably the frame of a welterweight, but he's a very large guy. I was on vacation one time. We were on like a booze cruise, and there's this guy, and he's having fun, and he probably weighs 330 pounds, and he's dancing, and everyone's laughing at him, and boom, all of a sudden, he just starts like break dancing. Bam, spinning on his back, gets up, there's a backflip. Everyone is just amazed. Does this for like 90 seconds. It's like the craziest thing you've ever seen. And then he walks away and everyone's like, holy shit, whoa, whoa, whoa. And it's like he's actually on the side of the boat now. But it was like he did it, man. That guy did it. It was some athleticism I never seen possible in my life. Chris Barnett was exactly that. When you and I started at Fight Network, we used to play this XFC promo all the time because we played the old XFC fights. And it was this promo of Chris Barnett, and he's doing like a backflip and he's spinning after his fight. And it was like he's got freakish athleticism for a gigantic man. It explodes into MMA, right? I think he went 14-1 to start off his career, beating Bigfoot Silva once upon a time. It was actually a decent heavyweight out of ATT. Wall Harris, another decent heavyweight out of ATT, eventually made the UFC. Travis View, former UFC veteran. Like he's getting some decent wins along the way. It's at some point, dude, he just completely lets himself go. You thought he had the body of a middleweight back in the day. At least he used to make 265 back in the day. But come 2014, Demario Dennis, he weighs in at 316. He fought Richard White, he weighed 317. He fought Travis View. These are all consecutive fights. I'm not taking a gap here. He weighs 340 for Travis View. Next fight against John Hill, 329. Goes to Japan against Suzukawa, 334. Now he starts training in Southern California with Alistair Overeem. Alistair Overeem has an interview actually where he's like, you won't be able to hold me down for my next fight. I'm training with this guy. Never names him by name. I'm training with this guy. Dude lied to me. Dude told me he was like 280 pounds, but I could feel him on top of me. And I thought to myself, there's no way this guy's 280. No way this guy's 280. He's like, so we forced him to get on the scale. My manager forced him to get on the scale. He was 330 pounds. And the guy ended up being Chris Barnett. He's huge. Yeah, but it's like you said. I mean, he's a great athlete, but he's got the body of a middleweight. I mean, maybe even a welterweight. When he was a kid, he did taekwondo. That's why he does all this spinning stuff. That's why he can show some of that flash athleticism. He can do a backflip. He can do a spinning hook kick. He just doesn't have the physicality or the body type to be fighting with elite level heavyweights. You look at his record, it's littered for the most part with undersized men, guys that were at the tail end of their careers, or just quite simply guys that had losing records. He defeats them. When he goes over to Japan, when he goes over to Korea, when he fights anybody who's, a little bit of a level above that, it just doesn't go well for him. It just doesn't seem like he doesn't care, right? He's fought a little bit of kickboxing recently. I think he's 0-2. He's also fought pro boxing. He's 2-4 in boxing. As far as his MMA career goes, it kind of fanned out as well. I mean, he's just doing other things. He fights Rashawn Jackson, an Island fight, 2019. He wins a split decision over a 5-2, very, very low level competition. Wins a split decision over him, right? And then after that, just disappears for another year. Comes back at UAE Warriors in the Middle East, wins over this Ahmed Tijani Shteu, who's 0-0. And again, the fight's at 300 pounds. And so again, that's to me the biggest thing here is you're going to have to see the weigh-ins. We know he's going to be short. We know he's going to have an awkward looking frame, but I don't even think he makes the weight. I really don't. Here's a guy that when he trained with Alistair Overeem's on record being like he weighs 330. You look at all these early fights from him. It's like, the Demario Dennis fight, 316. Richard White, next fight, 317. Very next fight against Travis View, 340. John Hill, next fight after that, 329. Shizukawa fight after that, 334. This guy's a big, big, big man. And his last fight it was a 300-pound super heavyweight fight, and it was a year ago. Now he's coming in here on short notice. He walks around at 300 pounds. Is he going to cut 35 pounds in a week? I don't know, man. He's a lot older. He's definitely got that speed advantage. He's definitely got the ability to land something in the first 5 minutes, but I would think that he's going to get tired rather quickly here. Ben Rothwell is eventually going to be able to, kill the speed gap by just tiring him out, and then eventually he'll be able to track him down, put some hands on him. One would imagine that Ben's able to TKO him later in the second into the third round, but again,
or win
Rothwell,
by submission at 11-1.
Right. It's all possible. But I don't know that he doesn't have a neck, right? He's never been submitted, I don't think. Chris Barnett, I guess Yoel Romero submitted him in a grappling match, which is
recently.
Yeah, I know as well. It was 2019. It was 2 years ago now, but Yoel's a middleweight who I guess can fight at 205. And this guy's a 340-pound super heavyweight who's able to last less than 4 minutes with Yoel Romero in the grappling department. So I don't know. It does not bode well. I'm really excited to see him in the UFC. He is super entertaining, but like he's going to need to fight like Chase Sherman. He's going to need to fight like Ike Villanueva. He's going to have to fight those guys. Like Ben Rothwell is done. He's at the tail end. He is supposedly shot at 3-1. I'm going to pass on that. I don't want Ben Rothwell at 3-1, but yeah, I can't deny he's the rightful favorite. He's the rightful pick. So I'll go with Rothwell.
Yeah. Rothwell's just always been pretty durable. And that is
the most durable guy.
Therein lies the problem, especially when you're dealing with a heavyweight and you're dealing with Barnett, who you're talking about having gassing issues. I mean, it's a tough scene. I'm gonna wait though, because like sometimes jumping at these props too early in the week, it's just like I have enough books that like somebody will give me like a 13 or a 14 to 1. And I'll be your Huckleberry. I mean, the 11 to 1 I would take right now. But one of my other books, who will remain nameless because I don't want them, shaping up their
Catching
game. But
on.
they've been giving out some really stupid props. Like they're not even keeping up with the market right now. So
Right.
I'll be hitting that. I'll be looking for Rothwell by submission at like 14 to 1 if they're dumb enough to post that. All right, we got Court McGee taking on Claudio Silva. Court McGee minus 125. Claudio Silva plus 105. Most shocking thing about this fight is Claudio Silva is older than Court McGee. Who do you got in this fight, Cody?
Yeah, well, you know me. I never bet Claudio Silva ever, 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 ever. He's the one guy that I automatically fade every time out. And the only time I've ever made a cent was the last time. Because it's like, my God, he finds a way to win, Paul Shaughnessy. It's aggravating. It's agitating. It's one of the sloppiest, most dull, worst things to watch. But Claudio Silva knows how to grease these fights out. And I get the resume is impressive, being that he does have the win over Leon Edwards. It's something that comes up every time that you mentioned Claudio Silva, but it's like right place, right time. Leon Edwards didn't know how to grapple. He was young in his career, and he's coming out of England. He's just probably not ready for that level of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And Claudio Silva was able to peel him to the ground and end up taking the decision over him. The Nordine Taleb fight, extremely frustrating to watch, but he ends up getting the rear naked choke. The Danny Roberts fight, oh my God, what are you doing, Danny Roberts? Fights the world's worst game plan. Still almost wins the fight 3 times. And Claudio Silva in the third, down again, gets his back, cements him. It's like, oh my God. The Cole Williams fight, it's Cole Williams. So it's just like a really low-level stretch of guys that because he beat Leon Edwards, I think there's a narrative that he can still compete with the Leon Edwardses of the world, but he can't. He can. He can beat the Cole Williams of the world. He can squeak out the Danny Roberts. He can squeak out the Nordine Taleb, but I really don't like what I see out of him. If the fight does hit the ground, you can't take away the fact that it's like third-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. His top game, very suffocating, doesn't leave a whole lot of space, but he has no takedowns. Like, it's all just like desperation stuff, almost like drag you to the ground. And bad cardio, bad takedowns, awful striking. Eventually someone was going to catch him. I try to fade him every time out because it's like someone is going to catch him. And finally we got it on James Krause. It was an even money play both ways, so whatever, I'll take it. But James Krause is a natural 155 pounder, but still he knows how to wrestle a little bit. And even though he does get taken down, he knows how to grapple a little bit. It's all about just survive when you're on the ground. Survive, get up, make this guy work. But now everybody, every time on Twitter, everyone's laughing at him, right? You look at the live play-by-play, go to your timeline, go to your feed, go whoever you follow, everyone's laughing at him, but he wins. So the next time he fights, everyone's forgotten all that. The James Krause fight, same thing, everyone's laughing at him. Now we got him booked in another spot, and it's like, it just goes right back to the, well, what if he does end up on top? Well, maybe he does. Maybe he does. The guy's 5-1 in the UFC for a reason, right? More often than not, he is getting these fights to the ground and he's winning them. In fact, he scores at least one takedown all of his fights: 3 against Brad Scott, 3 against Leon Edwards, 1 against Nordine Taleb, 3 against Danny Roberts, 1 against Cole Williams, 2 against James Krause. So one would imagine that he is going to take down Court McGee. I just don't think he submits Court McGee when he does take him down. And then second and third round, the longer this thing goes, Court McGee does have good gas tank. Court McGee is a fairly durable guy. I think he's just going to sprawl and brawl him down the stretch and at least win the second and third round. So I'm going to go with Court McGee. There's not a whole lot of guys in the UFC I would bet Court McGee over at this point. I think that he's definitely slowed down. Wear and tear, general, just, not only mileage inside the cage, but mileage outside the cage, is crazy past and his upbringing and all this and that, right? He's one of these guys that like a Jim Miller and a Cowboy Cerrone, and they're at that stage of their career where they need to be fighting other legends, other veterans. Court McGee doesn't have the status. They're not going to give him a Cowboy Cerrone fight. They're not going to give him a high-profile guy. So he needs to keep fighting the Sean Bradys of the world. He needs to keep fighting these young up-and-comers that are coming up. But I think Court McGee is an excellent gatekeeper, and he's someone that does a very good job of it. The last fight with Carlos Condit, why he chose not to take down Carlos Condit, I don't know. But they're former friends. It was supposed to be a fight of the night fight. He decided to fight to Carlos's hand, but Carlos can strike. Claudio Silva cannot strike. The fight prior to that was Sean Brady's. Cardio looked good. He got chin checked. He got dropped. Durability, didn't get knocked out. As far as being on the ground, Sean Brady, black belt as well, try to style on him, was good. Third round of that fight, McGee still coming at him. Sean Brady's tired. That's what's going to happen here. Claudio Silva is going to look good in that first round. I might even have a play on the live bet opportunity if I can. If Claudio Silva's to burn me again, well, you know what? It's happened to me a few times. But his once you see him in there, man, you're not gonna be happy if you have money on him. You will not. Could he win? It's MMA. Anybody could win. But it's like he is not the kind of guy that you would want to trust with hard-earned money, no matter what the line is. So for that reason, I got to go with McGee. Am I super pumped up about that? No. But to me, it's the logical and it's the right choice.
Makes sense to me. All right, we've got Bruno Silva taking on Victor Rodriguez. Bruno Silva minus 340 favorite. Rodriguez can be had for plus 280. Rodriguez coming in on, I think, short notice in his last fight against Adrian Yanez. Tough matchup. But watching all of his regional scene tape before that fight, I didn't really think that he was some sort of world beater by any stretch of the imagination. It was, fighting on the Alaskan scene. There just isn't the same level of competition, same type of bodies that you're going up against. And then Bruno Silva, last time out, that's probably what is setting this line here, is Bruno Silva looked about as good as we have seen him. He looked, he was dominating in the striking, and just he looked like everything was kind of coming together in that fight against JP Buys. And it was a spot where, frankly, he could have got cut after the Tajir fight because, the no contest that it's listed as against Khalid Taha was actually a arm triangle choke loss to Khalid Taha. Then he lost to Dvorak, then Tajir. So he's three straight losses there for him. He looked great last time out. I think that this line is definitely much more inflated than I really want to get involved in, though. Bruno Silva, he's more of like a kickboxer, right? Like the grappling isn't quite there, like all that much. I'm sure he spent some time with Henry Cejudo, but Cejudo's not even training or not. Is he really in the gym? I don't really know or think so. Like, is he going to be ready for that type of style? I don't know. 340 for Bruno Silva. I know he looked good against JP Buys, but I don't think JP Buys or Cheyenne, I faded her against Necktat. I don't think either one of the Buys is really of a UFC caliber, whatever that means anymore. Minus 340, Bruno Silva sounds pretty scary to me. What's your take?
Yeah, well, it sounds scary because you're just not used to having to bet Bruno Silva as a big favorite. But yeah, I guess the whenever JP Buys, and now he's everybody's darling. If you remember going into the JP Buys, he was like universally everybody's dog of the week. Everybody had him as the underdog of the week. He's plus money against Buys. And it's like, how is a guy that's, as you alluded to, it's like he's not on a very good run here. He's 0-3 in the UFC, essentially. One's a no contest because of the positive drug test. But it's like he hasn't, he's losing fights. But it's like, man, who's he losing to? How's he losing? So Taha, right, is on the juice. So you give him a pass there. It's his debut, and Taha's on the gear. Then it's David Dvorak, who, as we talked about also on this card, just seems to be a pretty good prospect. And Bruno Silva is in a good fight with David Dvorak, right? As I mentioned, I had it scored 1-1 going into the third. It's close. It's competitive. It's just he comes up on the short end of it. It's not the end of the world. At least you're in there with a tough guy. And then they give him to Gir Ulanbekov. So now it's like universally he's panned in that fight. No one wants any part of him. Everyone's Ulanbekov. Guys friends with Khabib, they're cousins, train in the mountains of Dagestan. Guys wrestling's on another level. Guys cardio's on another level. Everyone that trains with him raves with him. Watch what's going to happen. And again, Bruno Silva makes it a sticky situation. So for a guy that was 0-3 in the UFC, it's like you still give him his credit. His stock's going up. It's tough being in the room with Pitbull Brothers and Henry Cejudo, and maybe Henry's not there, and maybe you interchange a guy here and there. The main thing is that this guy's grinding, he's working hard, and he is making those improvements. The version that you see against Taha, he seems undersized, he's not physically strong enough, and for a guy that is a good grappler, he got arm triangle choked by a German striker. It's not a good look. The very next version against David Dvorak, more competitive, more fluid, gets his wrestling going a little bit in that fight, does come up on the short end. Against Ulanbekov, it's like, man, his wrestling looked way better. His grappling looked way better. His scramble ability looked way better. His striking looked improved. And again, he's in a good fight. fight comes on the short end of it. So against JP Buys, it's like do or die, right? I got a 4-fight contract. I've lost the first 3 fights on it. It's time to go out there and take care of business. And yeah, again, I mean, he's a generalist. He's well-rounded. He's not a great striker. He's not a great wrestler. He's not a great grappler, but he's not bad in any one element either. And so it's all about putting the right game plan together and exposing these guys. And against Victor Rodriguez, I mean, I think there's lots that you could potentially expose on him. He just hasn't fought at that level. I mean, he's 7-3, right? So already a 7-3 record for a fighter in the UFC, a little soft. You've got 10 fights winning at 70% clip. Okay, fair enough. It's the fact that the entire 7 wins are built on the Alaska regional scene. And get this, right? So he's fought for Alaska FC a lot. And then he also fought for Blood, Sweat, and Beers. Blood, Sweat, and Beers, Paul. This is 2 years ago he's fighting for Blood, Sweat, and Beers. He also fought for SAA RFC 8. Solid as a Rock Fighting Championships. Who came up with this name, man?
Love it.
Say that 10 times fast.
Solid as a Rock Fighting Championship. Solid as a Rock Fighting Championship. Solid as a Rock Fighting Champ. That's not very fast. I don't speak very fast, but.
And you know what? It was actually more impressive than I thought it would be. Yeah, okay, fair. All I'm saying is like you go from fighting for Solid as a Rock Fighting Championship and Blood, Sweat, and Beers to we need a guy in the UFC here, call up. Now, mind you, the 3 losses that he's had, or the 2 prior losses, he both got finished. He got knocked out by this Johnny Totten in his second pro fight, and he got submitted by this Jeff Bailey in his third pro fight. So he starts out his career 1-2. He's been finishing those fights. He's fought in very low-level guys in Alaska, and now he's making his UFC debut against a legitimate prospect in Adrian Yanez. It was never going to go good for him. He never had a shot, in my opinion. He goes out there, and Yanez puts a highlight reel beating on him. How does he rebound from that and come into this fight? Like, I don't know that he improves all that much. And against Bruno Silva just showed in the JP Buys fight, striking's improved a lot. As far as who dictates where this fight takes place, Bruno Silva wants Victor down, he's going to take him down. As far as the fight hitting the ground, I give Bruno Silva the advantage in the grappling. As far as the fight stays standing, which you assume is Victor Rodriguez's best path, he's been knocked out twice in the first round in his career now. He hasn't fought a whole lot of great level strikers, and the times that he has stepped up, he's just not looked competitive in there. So kind of hard to get behind this guy. Now, I agree with you. It's like, is the line too big? How do we go from underdog of the week to biggest favorite on a card? Kind of like, how do you go from one to the other? But I think it goes down to the guy's making a lot of improvements. He's coming a long way here. And you look at this Dennis Bondar. He's supposed to fight Dennis Bondar. Bondar gets hurt. Bruno Silva comes into the fight. So on one hand, it's like, oh man, Bruno Silva's coming into the fight short notice. But because he just fought, because he looked good recently, he's looking to keep this momentum going. And he actually jumped in short notice, I think, in his last fight as well. It's like, it's a good vibe. He's feeling good. He goes out there, he makes wait for weigh-ins maybe. But I think he gets the job done. I'm going to agree with you. The line's probably a little bit off, but there's not a whole lot that I can take away from Victor Rodriguez that I like at this level. So for that reason, I think Bruno Silva goes out there and earns his second consecutive victory inside the UFC.
All right, moving on down the card, we have Joshua Culibao taking on Yilan. The guy's actual pronunciation, like, I'm not even going to give that a shot. I guess his nickname is Wolverine. Haven't had a chance to watch tape on him. Looks like a lot of finishes. I noticed that he got knocked out by Zhu Rong in the first round. And the real thing that maybe you can talk some sense into it for me here is the over-under is set to 2.5 rounds. And the over is juiced to minus 185. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 155. Culibao hits hard. This guy, you go through his record, he either, gets finished or finishes people pretty quickly. Like, this feels like maybe my favorite play on the card. I have to watch some tape on the guy, but regional scene Chinese fighter coming into the UFC could be in for a bad time. Under is what I'm drawn to right now. What's your take here?
Yeah, I got to go with Josh Culibao as well. It just comes back to the money line, right? Josh Culibao is not a guy that I don't think most people have been super high up on in his entire tenure in the UFC. Lost to Jalen Turner in his debut. Next time against Charles Jourdain, he's like my fade of the week, and he actually ends up looked pretty good in the first round anyways, gets a draw out of that fight. But you're not super high on him. So now the prospect of paying a big price tag on his money line is just a little bit absurd. If he gets this thing done, you got to think he probably gets it done inside the distance. But again, I don't want to really like force my hand on a prop. When you look at Yilan, he's got very much one of these makings of like a bust Chinese prospect. Like he doesn't like it's all smoke and mirrors. The experience is not quite real, like they'll have a good looking record. They'll be on a good looking win streak. It looks like they've got experience, but you saw the other day, right? With Zhu Rong's card. It's like they brought in 3 Chinese prospects, training out of the Performance Institute under Dean Amissinger. They've got a Chinese champion in the main event, or the co-main event. They're pumped up. This is their movement. They're pushing them, and they just like all looked super inexperienced. Zhu Rong especially. Zhu Rong didn't look like he could grapple. Zhu Rong didn't look like his power translated from fighting these scrubs on the Chinese regional scene to fighting a durable Mexican opponent in the UFC. Like the power just wasn't there. The volume wasn't there, but he also looked like a deer in the headlights. He's 21 years old. So we go back to the fact that he was 17-2. 17-3 was his pro record. It's like, well, where was all that pro experience? The guy had more pro fights than Kamaru Usman. So it's like, well, where's all this experience? It's like, it's not real experience. Usman's got real experience. You fight the best guys. That's how you get better. Zhu Rong, he's still young, but it was all just like the fake Chinese, cities. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a real city. It looks like a real city, but there's nobody that lives there. Like it's all just for show. So when I look back on him, this is 2017. He fights 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He fought 10 times in 2017 alone, Paul, right? Last year's a pandemic year. He fights 5 times during a pandemic year, but he fights Alexei Olenek. Oh, the fake Alexei Olenek in 24 and 18.
Not that Alexei Olenek.
Yeah, Yibugeli, right? Hwangse Wusinibieki, right? 10 and 11. Zhu Rong. The only reason anybody's heard of Zhu Rong is because he just fought in the UFC. Didn't look good. Looked out of place. Zhu Rong needs approximately 2 minutes and 5 seconds to dispatch this guy. And he does rebound, beating another, his last fight, the guy's 3-5. So it's a hard gap to go from a guy that's 3-5 to now fighting in the UFC. It's tough, man. So with Culibao's gas tank looked off in the Charles Jourdain fight. Like normally he's a guy that's fought in, he's pretty competitive in those third rounds. It looked like he got tired, but maybe he just exerted himself too early in the early portion. I mean, his boxing looked a lot better in that fight. It looked like it was hard to drag him to the ground. And that's the last thing I want to mention with the Shailan is that Shailan, he looks like he's a grappler first. I mean, he likes to force a lot of these wrestling exchanges. So he's going to come out here and try to wrestle. I just don't think that his wrestling game and what he brings to the cage is going to be enough to consistently peel down Josh Culibao. So more often than not, they're going to have to strike for a little bit. And I mean, judging by his chin, if he gets hit by Culibao, he could, good possibility he topples over. If he's able to consistently get this fight to the ground, he's going to also need Culibao to gas out. Because if Culibao is getting taken down, no big deal. He's just going to work his way back up, and then he's going to have his spots. If Culibao gasses out from getting taken down in the first or second round, and all of a sudden doesn't, present much defense back, we're going to have a problem. Do you want to get on a 3-1 Josh Culibao? No, probably not. But it is the pick. I'm not going to spam an underdog here that I don't have the faith in. And I just don't think this guy's got it. I think a lot of those fights on his record have been accrued over the course of 12 months. You're fighting once a month and you're fighting a low level competition in your own backyard. The judges are in your corner. It's like that's a big stretch. That's a big difference when jumping into the UFC octagon, fighting some of the best guys in the world. Is Josh Culibao one of the best guys in the world? No, but Josh Culibao, prior to coming to the UFC, was one of the best Australian guys. He had a decent resume. He was certainly getting better. And is Jalen Turner a walkover? No. Is Charles Jourdain a walkover? No, they're tough fights. So if you give him a pass there and you consider that this represents a drop back down to the level he was fighting prior to coming to the UFC, and he looked very good fighting that level of competition prior to coming to the UFC. So I think he gets the job done here.
Under. I'm going to bet the under. Damir Hadzovic takes on Yancy Medeiros, minus 130. Hadzovic plus 110. Medeiros, who you got?
I think I'm going to go with Yancy Medeiros. I don't feel great about it, and I'd also recommend that you wait until we see the scales. I mean, him coming in at 155 pounds, I think it's a tough cut for him. He has fought in his career as high as 185 pounds. He's fought as low as 145 pounds. But look at that stretch where he fights Sean Spencer, Eric Silva, Alex Cowboy Oliveira. 3-fight winning streak, best form he's looked in the UFC, all at 170 pounds. He gets the Donald Cerrone fight. He gets knocked out by Cerrone at 170 pounds. Then he drops back down to 155. And The Gregor fight, whoa, no favors there. The Lando fight at the time, maybe a bit like not a head scratcher, but a little bit like, oh shit, he's losing Lando. But from what I've seen from last week and from Lando Venata, like he's got some magic left in the tank for sure. And if he stays at 145 and he stays committed, like he looked like he had a whole lot of talent. So going back to Yancey's, that he hasn't fought in a year. He hasn't fought in a year. B, he's fighting at 155, and we all know that he's a big guy, long guy, tall guy, getting older. The weight cuts were tough to begin with. That's the reason why he bailed from 55, went to 170 in the first place. Coming off a year-long absence, I would think that it's going to be a tough weight cut. But beyond that is that Damir Hadzovic was supposed to fight Nicholas Mata on last week's card, right? And it gets pulled out of, it gets canceled. Mata gets injured. So they've rebooked Hadzovic 1 week later. So Yancy Medeiros is the one I would think he's coming in here on short notice. He did not have a fight booked as of a week ago. He's now stepping in on technically on short notice. So because I think he is a big guy, I think it's going to be a tough cut to 155. And then being a tough cut to 155, and now you have to stand there in front of Damir Hadzovic could be a problem, right? The reason why I ended up going with Yancy, though, is that plus money. I think that he should be the favorite. I mean, when you want to talk about big level experience, he's been in those spots. He's headline shows, even fighting Lando Venata, Gregor Gillespie, and Donald Cerrone, all name brand opponents. Alex Oliveira, name brand opponent. Francisco Trinaldo and Dustin Poirier are the other losses. Jim Miller, Rustam Habalov, Yves Edwards. Literally all the guys that he's lost to are all like solid name brand veterans of the sport, guys that earned it. The wins, little light, let's say, but at the same time, I mean, he's a good gatekeeper level guy. Hadzovic just hasn't looked himself, and the fact that he's 34 years old, coming off a year-long absence, I don't know how much better it's going to get for him. You look at his wins, right? Polo Reyes no longer with the promotion, Nick Hine no longer with the promotion, Marcin Held no longer with the promotion. If he's the Bosnian bomber, man. I mean, he hits you, he's going to put you away. He's got big power, but he seems a little bit one-dimensional. If you can pressure this guy and take the fight to the ground, that is the path with him. It just doesn't seem like he lets his hands go enough. When he does get the knockout, it's usually with like a big explosive knee, like that big overhand right. It's like one big power shot. Could he catch Yancy with that one big power shot? Definitely possible. But if he doesn't land that one big shot, Yancy's going to stay at range and just, I think, outpoint him. He's a guy that at his best,
6-inch reach advantage for Yancy there.
6-inch reach, and again, you go by the numbers and you look at a lot of the fights. Mind you, he is fighting the better level of competition, but he's able to land 100 significant strikes. He stays in your face. He's got good boxing. He's got a good jab. He's a guy that is, he always credits the Diaz brothers with helping him refine his game, but he has kind of got that Diaz style. Like he could stalk his opponents and use his range to just hit you and pick you apart. So I think Hadzovic comes out here with the bigger power shots, and Yancy Medeiros kind of out volumes him. I guess I would favor for dog money Yancy Medeiros, but there is a bad gut feeling. As far as like a confidence level goes, there's a bad gut feeling that Yancy, I think he's probably taking this fight on short notice. As I mentioned, Hadzovic supposed to fight Mata as of last week. Yancy doesn't have a fight booked as of last week. So now he's got to come down. He's got to make 155 pounds. It's going to be a tough weight cut. If he tires in there, it could be a problem. If he has a bad weight cut and he gets hit by something heavy by Hadzovic off the hop, could be a problem. But I don't put Damir in the same conversation as I do all the other guys that have been able to go out there and beat Yancy Medeiros. So as far as dog money goes, I think he's worth a play.
All right, that makes sense to me. And finally, we got Damir Ismagulov taking on Rafael Alves. Minus 550 for Ismagulov. Plus 400 for Alves. I mean, Alves was supposed to fight at 145 pounds against Pat Sabatini. And then he came in like 14 pounds overweight. Just about as bad of a weight cut as it happens. I can't figure out why it looks like this fight was supposed to happen last week, but the bout was rescheduled. I'm trying to dig it up. Did something happen that I'm not aware of?
No, I just think it was probably
there's too many fights. Yeah, something silly like that. All right, so Alves moving up to 155 after absolutely going full Rumble Johnson on his way. Like, I mean, you probably still have to watch him to make sure he makes this weight class because he would have missed this weight class last time out. Damir has been this Damir. I mean, it's funny how they must be going through like alphabetical orders. Just like, call the Damirs, get them on the May 22nd card. Damir Ismagulov looks, I mean, he can be a little bit boring. Maybe he's not like the most fan-friendly style, but like his boxing looks super technical. The guy seems to be the real deal. Holyfield has all of the skills necessary. Obviously, a little bit of a risky fight here, and the price ain't very much fun at minus 550. But this guy's looked like the real deal. He looks like a top 10, potential top 10 kind of guy in this division. I don't know if we can say the same about Rafael Alves. So Demir's the pick, but I want to hear what you have to say. Maybe we can find a prop to play here.
Yeah, I got Damir Ismagulov. I got him by decision. I think, you mentioned he's maybe a dull fighter. Maybe he's not made the most appealing or fan-friendly style, but like, as far as wager friendly, as far as gambler friendly, like what's there not to like about Damir Ismagulov? He just goes out there and he's unflappable. He's got skills everywhere. It's hard to catch him off guard. And I go back and we talk about, geez, is this Chinese prospect ready to come into the UFC? Ismagulov is one of these prospects that by the time he already came to the UFC, he's already bona fide. You know what I mean? He's already fought in some of the best guys in the country. He's a former M1 global champion, defended the title twice. You look at his run, it's like some solid names on it. Raul Tudoroli, right? He's the current M1 champion and an absolutely freakish beast of a man, right? Takes care of him. Damkowski takes care of him. Comes to the UFC. Joel Alvarez on a great run right now. His grappling looks fantastic. He's picking up some quality wins. People are getting high on him. Thiago Moises seems to have hit another level. His grappling is on point. People are starting to get very high on him. Neither of these guys are able to take down Ismagulov. Now these guys are even coming close to taking down Ismagulov. He deals with grappling extremely well, right? His takedown defense is on point. The striking, it's not overwhelming. It's not, power oriented. It's not going to go out there and get that quick finish. But I mean, it's surgical. He just pieces you away. Now, the fact is that beating those guys by decision, not a problem. Beating Alex Gorgies by decision, totally a problem. Like, the one knock on Ismagulov is he's not exactly a potent finisher. But there's no denying the guy's on a 17-fight winning streak and not taking on, bums the entire way. I mean, he's fighting an increasingly better level of competition and looking good doing so. So you look at the fact that not a whole lot of guys in the UFC have really attempted to take him down, but he does show a 100% takedown defense. I think that he's very solid in that department. How is Rafael Alves going to win this fight? Alves almost certainly needs to get this thing to the ground and try to out-grapple him. Fight stay standing, Ismagulov, just similar to a Georges St. Pierre. Is Georges St. Pierre really like the highest level striker in the UFC? Like, I don't know. But George had just a great jab and could just stay to the outside and defeat guys simply on the basis of just a good jab. He's straight, he's fast, he's quick, he snaps it, and he's out of harm's way. Ismagulov just beats you up. He just hits you. He doesn't necessarily hurt you, but it definitely looks good in the judge's eyes. And what can you do to him, right? Guys just haven't been able to figure it out yet. Somebody might be able to do it eventually, but I don't think Rafael Alves is that guy. When you look at Rafael Alves, at one point, he looks like he's becoming a journeyman. He's 14-9. It's not a good looking record. He just lost on a Michigan regional scene title fight against Jason Fisher. Sorry. Again, it's like his best days are behind him. It's this move to 145 that kind of reinvented himself. But when you look at Guilherme Miranda, right? He's a 3-1 underdog in this fight, Titan FC. He comes in at 155 pounds, gets the victory as a 3-1 underdog. Now against Babit Nazarov, he missed weight in that fight, came in at 158. He was also a 2-1 underdog. So these odds makers watching Titan fights have him as a 3-1 underdog and a 2-1 underdog respectively. He misses weight in both of them and gets the job done. Next time against Felipe Douglas, 5-round fight at 155 pounds. When he made the Contender Series weight at 145, he was huge, but it didn't seem like featherweight was the weight class for him. But I could understand what he was doing. He wants to be the big, physical, strong guy that's able to get you, grab a hold of you, peel you to the ground. He does his best work with the submissions, especially the guillotine choke, gets a hold of your neck. Again, he's very strong. He'll be able to hopefully get the submission, the win. But against Ismagulov, now that he's at 155, that natural advantage off the table of being the bigger man, he's going to struggle mightily to get this fight to the ground. Ismagulov keeps it standing, and I think he chops him up from the outside. So I got Ismagulov by decision. Could I see him getting a finish? Potentially, only because Alves tends to get really tired in these fights and give them up. His last 4, 5, 6, He's been finished pretty much in all of his law. You know what? I might not even take that decision prop. What's the
Yeah.
TKO? You look it up real quick. What's the TKO on Ismagulov?
I've got it in front of me here. Ismagulov by
Alves
KO
has been
slash
finished
TK
9 times in 9
slash
losses.
TKO is plus 215, plus 180. I don't like very much of it, to be honest. The by decision, which is usually the more, the common play that you would make on an Ismagulov fight when it's a little bit too steamed, but that's at minus 120, which is like, I mean, we're talking like 50, 52, 55% type of territory there. I mean, that's probably how he wins, but it seems, I don't know. Maybe it's just safer to just pass this altogether.
Yeah, well, again,
like the price just got out of hand. You make your parlays, you do what you do, but I mean,
but it's a bait type of weekend. When you look at it, Ismagulov I feel cool with, but he's 550, right? Josh Culibao is minus 255. What? Just Bruno Silva's minus 340. Ben Rothwell is minus 300. Like, imagine I was just telling you, I was like, you didn't even know. I was like, oh, Ben Rothwell's fighting this weekend. He's a 3-1 favorite. You'd be like, oh, who the hell is he fighting?
Is he fighting? Like, is he fighting a small child? Like, what's going on?
Yeah,
you'd be like, well, kind of a big baby.
Yeah, essentially. Bruno Silva's fighting this week. He's a minus 340 favorite. It's like, did the UFC release him? And he's like fighting an LFA again? Yeah. Like, Josh Culibao is a minus 255 favorite. Geez, Bellator is really trying to give him a push. Like, what world are these guys 3-1 favorites in the world's premier mixed martial arts organization? Like, there's some traps. There's some fishy, greasy traps sitting here.
Well, Demir is a legit deal. Like, it's just the price. People are aware of it. And that's just the price of admission. The price of admission is a little bit like we're getting into banana peel territory here. But yeah, one of those assholes, Ben Rothwell, Josh Culibao, and Bruno Silva, one of those assholes is going to shit in the apple pie this week. You can just feel. I can already smell. I can smell the shit. Somebody, one of those guys is just asking. With those lines, like they're just asking. But it's just like, my struggle with it is I don't really like any of those underdogs, to be perfectly honest, either. So I don't know. Not a card that I'm like in love with. Nothing that's like completely jumping off the page. When I look through like my notes and what I've gone through here, I'm thinking about hitting that under at plus 155. Maybe there's a better price out there. I'm not sure. That's what I've got written down in front of my under 2.5 rounds in the Culibao versus Yilan. I'm going to hit that. A little sprinkle on Rothwell by sub, probably doesn't win, but roll over some of your ketchup beating or Giago's winnings into that. Just a touch is an 11-1 prop. Like you don't need to put a lot down to get big returns. And then like Bill Algeo, it sounded like that was kind of our consensus play of the week, that he wins on volume. So that's probably my main pillar piece, I guess, this week. And other than that, I guess we'll wait for the weigh-ins. So those are my 3 plays. I guess we're just about out of time here. But before we go, hit him with the PRP.
Bam, hit you with the PRP. We're going to go even money, Rob Font. I'm going to go with Yilan. Kind of even money, but still, she's a slight favorite. So she's the favorite. Justin Tafa. Felicia Spencer, Rolian Paiva, dog number 1, Jack Hermansson, Bill Algeo, Ben Rothwell, Court McGee, Bruno Silva, Joshua Culibao, Yancy Medeiros, dog number 2, Damir Ismagulov. I would say that the 3 near even monies that I like this week is Rob Font. He's minus 110. I like him. Bill Algeo is minus 120, as Paul and I talked about. I liked it. And then Paul seemed to agree with me on the Jack Hermansson, minus 150. Seemed too good to be true. But again, Hermansson on 150 seems pretty good. So those are going to be able to juice up a lot of your stuff. As far as like a top ticket play, Ismagulov's going to have to get parlayed with somebody. So I'm going to retape Bruno Silva. Seems like that'd be the safe path to go. But again, I mean, I got Bruno Silva on a top ticket. Like, how great am I going to feel about that? As far as over-unders, that over 2.5 for the Spencer versus Dumont, I really think this thing is going to go 15 minutes. 180 as a 2.5 is not the worst thing out there.
Yeah,
Carlos Esparza versus Jan. I know the fight goes the distance is big, but if you're looking for a prop to parlay with a couple things here and there, I could see it. I'm tempted on the Vanderaa Tafa over 1.5, but it's a sloppy shit show of a heavyweight fight. So I should probably show a little bit of better judgment and maybe just have a pass on that one. But again, I think what we've seen from the last 2 weeks, especially, is that live betting opportunities are great, right? Because a lot of these guys that are winning the fight are losing the first round and rallying beyond that. So just going to have my eye open, wait for the weigh-ins, as you and I always talk about. That'll be on Friday. And then, we got a Bellator on Friday as well. So hopefully we can make this a solid weekend, get things going. And yeah, it looks like it's going to be a fairly violent card for the most part. So excited for it nonetheless.
Just wanted to say that the over in the Spencer Dumont fight, you parlay that with Ismagulov, gets you to -120.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's pretty solid, to be honest with you. I like that.
I'm going to make a little play on that. I'm going to make a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but hope you enjoyed the show this week. I mean, it was good week for me last week, but hoping that Cody, my man, because this show rises and falls with Cody Saftic. So hoping my man Cody Saftic gets right back on the winning train here. For Cody and Pat, I'm Paul saying goodbye and good luck.